Stephen?
I will at the back.
I'll
Okay.
let you know.
Yeah.
I've been to this class, Joe.
That's right. Well, it's always improving.
I'm
There's
sure.
always something new to take away.
I'm sure it is.
Alrighty. You guys all ready to talk about wealth building? Hello. We're live on YouTube land as well. So hi YouTube. All right. So people are typically a little late, but we're gonna get started anyway to be respectful of time. And just so real quick, why are you here? Because it was on the calendar and you just decided to show up? Okay, it sounds interesting. Okay, why interesting? Who said that? That's you. Okay.
That's the goal of what we're here. Why we're in business.
Okay, to build wealth. And why do you want to build wealth, if you don't mind sharing?
Legacy for loved ones, family, and all the people that matter to me.
Love it. Okay, build a legacy. Okay. Anyone else? Build a portfolio? We're gonna. Uh-oh. Just locked me out of that room. Build a portfolio. Okay. Can I ask why?
Yeah, again, passing down to our kids, but also ideally to have more freedom and
Freedom.
have that income instead of, be able to travel more.
Okay. Freedom, travel, awesome. Okay. Cool. Well, we're going to talk, for those of you that don't have a clear, these are whys. These are why we do what we do, why we build wealth. And then we're going to spend a lot of time today diving into the why. So let me walk you through what we're going to do today and make sure that you're getting exactly what you need out of this class. So we're going to go through three things. We're going to start with the path of money, which is kind of just an overview of how money works in general, to give you a framework to think about what you can do to build your wealth. Then we're going to talk about the why we build wealth, because we do things because of the why, not because of the things that we want, right? It's the and you'll see a quote that I'll share from Simon Sinek: people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. You're the same way. You buy why you're doing it, not just because you want the fancy stuff. It's about, there's something deeper, and we're going to try to dig in and find out what that is. And after we go through the why exercise, we'll spend just a little bit of time, with whatever time we have left, talking about some financial disciplines and what specific actions that we can take moving forward. Does that sound fair? Awesome. Okay, well, let's jump in then and talk about money. The path of money. So money comes from two sources. You've got you working for money, which is human capital, and you've got capital assets, your money working for you. Is that it? Does money come from anywhere else? Okay, I'll take that as a no. This is it. And even things like profit share, that becomes a capital asset. Because even though there was no money put in, it's working for you. So generally speaking, these are the two sources of money. And then what happens? When they produce money, what do we call that?
Profit?
Or cash flow. Yeah, profit, sure, but we're going to call it cash flow, because if you're running a business, there may not actually be profit, but there could be cash flow. So we'll go with cash flow, because it brings cash into your pocket. What do you get to do with that cash? What are your choices?
Contribute to the capitalist economy.
What was
Fund your operations.
define your operations?
Fund
Fund your operations. Okay, so circle it back to invest in your business or in other assets. You said contribute to the capitalist society? Economy. So
Buy
spend.
things. Yes.
You can spend it. Yes. And you basically said you can invest it.
Yeah.
Yes. What other choices do we have? So that's 2 out of 4. There's 4 choices.
Save it.
Save it, yes, or hold it, if you want to put it in a different term.
I'm not familiar with that. That's interesting.
And the last choice is donate, right? Like we don't have a lot of options to do with our money, and the reason we go through this is because it simplifies our thinking. It allows us to get clarity around what we can control so that we can make better choices with our money. So that's it. Spend, hold, donate, invest. Those are our choices. From there, if we're going to talk a lot about investing today, because that's a great way, I think, to build wealth, a lot better than spending, for example. So when you're investing, you also don't have too many choices. You can buy stuff, buy assets, or you can lend your money out. Right? Like those are the two buckets. Is there any other way to invest that I'm not thinking of? You can own it, you can lend it. Okay, we'll assume that that's the truth. And if you're owning or lending, the other choice you have to make is how much work you want to do. Is this an active investment or is it a passive investment? So here's a few examples of what we can do actively versus passively. Passive meaning you don't control it, but you also don't work for it. You're not checking in on your rentals every day. You're not fixing toilets. You're not foreclosing if you're the lender. So someone else is managing the asset for you, and it's producing a return for you. That's on the passive side. On the active side, that might be like if you bought a rental, even if it's professionally managed, you're still an active participant in that, because when stuff goes wrong, your property manager will still call you. And there might be bigger rewards on the active side, there might not be. It's kind of dependent on the scenario. But that's it for our choices. We get to lend, we get to own, we get to do it passively, we get to do it actively. And then we figure out what buckets we want to put our money in. And if we do it right, what happens?
You make money.
You make money, exactly. Which then goes where?
Back up to the board.
Top, yeah. So your returns end up going into your capital, well, they become your capital asset producing cash flow. And then it starts the cycle over again. So where do we control? What are our levers? What do we get to control in this diagram?
How much we work.
You can control your human capital, absolutely. And all of you own businesses, I think. And so you get to control the outcome of that business by putting in the right work, the right efforts, on the right thing to produce income. Even if you're salaried in a W-2 world, though, there are still things you can do. You can look for new jobs, you can ask for a raise, whatever it is, to increase your human capital. So absolutely, that's one. Increase your human capital. What else can we control?
Select the investments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you decide both how much you
Yeah.
invest and in what.
What?
Yeah, absolutely, and we'll get into that a little bit deeper. But there's, well, one other really big place that we have control over. And what is that? No one? Okay.
What we spend?
How much you spend, absolutely.
Oh, I do have control over that?
On some level.
Okay.
You may
I'm
not-
getting more interested.
You may not know you have control, but somewhere deep down inside, you can, in fact, not buy a $7 cappuccino, which I may have done this morning. Yeah, so we can increase our human capital. We didn't talk about taxes. We'll get there. We can decrease what we spend such that we can increase what we're investing, such that they'll increase our overall capital returns. And we'll talk about lowering taxes in the meantime so that we can keep more of the money. But that's really it. So we got human capital, spending, investing, and then deciding what to invest in, and then being smart about taxes. That's just a few levers. You see how simplifying it can help gain clarity around what action we can actually take? And we'll get to the action. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Let's talk about why. So it's that Simon Sinek quote I mentioned too, and it turns out you're a people too. Meaning you buy into why you do things, not just for the stuff. So we're going to go through and figure out why it is that you want to build wealth. And as you're able to define why you want to build wealth, you can better define your strategy for doing so. So we're going to go through, Simon Sinek wrote a book called Start With Why, and we're going to go through one of the exercises in there for our own wealth. So make sure you got a piece of paper so you can start making notes for what's inside of you that drives you forward. So what is a why? Someone define a why. What is the purpose of having a why as it relates to a wealth building journey or a business? What why is it important beyond that? That's what people are invested in. They're invested in why you do it, not what you're doing. But how would you describe a why?
What drives you?
What drives you? Yeah, that's spot on. It's your purpose, your motivation, your cause, your belief, and your inspiration. So that's what we're looking for here. What drives you to do the hard things? What drives you to get motivated, get out of bed, to take the chances, to take the risks? That's what we're looking for. So I'll get to an example, but let's start with working through these circles here. But start thinking about that. What drives you? Like really drives you? And if you're not sure what drives you, ask yourself why. Well, I might take a volunteer and we can dig through an exercise. So after we figure out your why, we got to figure out your how, and that's your values, your guiding principles, unique value proposition, skills, process, actions. So I'll get to some actions there, or some ideas there. But in short, that might be things like deciding if you are passively investing or actively investing. That's a how, right? And then the what is your actual strategy and asset allocation, figuring out what asset classes fit your why and your how in order to help define your what. And once you got all these things, then it makes investing easy, because you look at an investment like, no, that doesn't match my how, or nope, that's in the wrong bucket, whatever it is. So we're simplifying things so that we can take action quicker, because clarity is power. When things are unclear, we tend to not take action. And then when we don't take action, what happens?
Nothing.
Nothing happens, that's right. And you aren't getting towards where you want to go. So let's get you towards where we want to go. All right, so I'll show you some examples of a why, a how, and a what. And so this is kind of my wife and I's very much molded and paraphrased a little bit. So our why, to live, to experience life at its fullest, and to have the resources enabling the freedom of choice. Freedom is kind of, if we were to define it in one word, our why is freedom. To never have to say no because of the financial component. I might say no for other reasons. I'm not a skydiver, for example. You are, right?
But you'll drive the plane.
But I will absolutely fly the plane.
Sorry, I haven't taken the classes like you have, so I
That's
just
right.
want to jump out of it.
I learned that on day one. You don't drive it, you fly it. And contribute freely to a better world. So that's an example of a why. Yours may look very different. It might be one word. It might be freedom. It might be legacy. And I would challenge you to define what that means, though, because the clearer it is, the more powerful it is, and the more likely we are to take action. Yes?
Does it have to be one word? And how
No.
do you figure out what the one, okay.
What's your why? Do you mind? Can I?
No, you totally can, because I
Okay.
talk a lot, so.
Sweet.
My why is because I believe in property ownership, I believe in putting down roots, I believe in community. All the fluffy stuff. It's the how and the what that struggles with me. Like, I know my why, but I don't know the others.
Yeah, well, let's dig into that why a little bit more. So why is that important to you? That belief in property ownership.
Because
And
I
setting
didn't have
roots.
it growing up, and being at the command of a landlord who decides they're going to do something with their property and having to move.
Yep.
It's a hard time putting down roots and building the community around it. I
Mhm.
saw other people around me that did have those things and went, that's how you build legacy. That's how you build your wealth. I've said this before, and I'm from Canada, but I'm 6th generation Victorian from this little island in Canada, and my family doesn't own any of it. And I mean, it's an island, people. How hard was that to figure out? You got to buy some property.
Yeah.
And I saw immigrants that were our landlords that had been there, one generation, 10 years, and they owned multiple properties and were doing very well. And I, at a young age, pieced these things together that I think these can all go together. And this is, why I want to do this, why I want to be a real estate agent.
Yes, okay. And on your wealth build, it seems like that, I hear your why loud and clear for your real estate business as it translates to your personal wealth building journey. A lot of it translates pretty well. But tell me a little bit more, why all that is important, why that legacy and property ownership is important from a wealth building perspective.
Because once you own, you can, leverage that to own more in that community and become really a part of that community so that people know who you are and they come to you for information and for understanding, and I mean, I don't know if I'm answering the question right, but because you can build on it, because once you have one, you can have more.
Who knows Megan's why? In a word. She said it like 5 or 6 or 7 times.
Hint, I don't know it.
What? Community.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I hear that loud and
That's good.
clear. That your, and you might even dig deeper than this, but that your why is very much community-centered, community-centric, which is, yeah, that's awesome. And what that means to you, I would work to get clearer on, like, what is, if you got there, wherever there is, like the pinnacle of your wealth building journey, what did you build? What community did you build? Assuming community is in fact your why.
No, it is. This is really helpful. Like, it's blowing my mind.
Yep.
And I've done this with you before, but like you said, every time you get something new.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah, that's, and it would be, I think I said it as well, to be like looked at as somebody to go to for information, for knowledge, for help, for being able to help other people and give them ideas and clues of how to build up, you know, but before I get there, I have to do it for myself so I understand it. 'Cause
Cool,
that's,
yeah.
But I see what you mean, like, this is what you're saying now, but what does that look like in 10, 20 years? If that goal is reached, what is that vision? And I think that's why I've struggled probably with the how and the what, is because that's not quite clear in my own head.
Right. So now that it's a little bit clearer and you work on a 10, 20-year vision, I would ask yourself why it's important that you achieve that, and keep asking yourself. There's an exercise, oh man, it's probably out of a book called 7 Whys or something, but it's literally asking yourself why 7 times to help discover on a deeper level, like saying these things like freedom is great, but why is that important, right? Like dig deeper. Because, and this is crucial, like we're spending time on this because it's your purpose, it's your motivation, it's what actually drives you forward. So it's more than just, you know, money in the bank. It's why we're doing this thing. I use why a lot. Yeah. Any questions about that? Anyone else want to go through an exercise on discovering a why? Be vulnerable. It's okay if not.
Let's do it again for me. No, I'm kidding. Maybe I'll find out more. I'm excited.
Okay. Well, so hopefully you've got some notes on your why and you can spend some more time digging deeper. 7 whys. Ask it 7 times. And when you're stuck, that means you need to go at least one more time. Have a breakthrough. Get clarity around what you're doing this all for. Because it's a lot of work, right? Like our real estate business, our wealth building journey, it's not easy. So why do we do it? Because it pays the bills? I think we can come up with a better reason. All right, let's talk about the how. So your how is your values, your guiding principles. So I meant to add a few things onto this, but here's our how is investing for good and having our money work for us so that we can spend our time, again, freedom, with family and on experiences. And so the how that I can get clearer on this, and that's passive investing. So our how that's one of them, passive investing. Another might be climate conscious investing. That's one we're moving more and more towards. We have some very climate unfriendly investments at the moment, but we're moving in the right direction. And why is the how important before I start asking what your hows are?
Because you have to create a strategy and to the steps you need to take towards that.
That's it in short. I mean, there's a lot of reasons to create a how, but one is, again, clarity, so that you know where you're going and can figure out the strategy, the actual asset allocation and whatnot that you want to accomplish. Otherwise, like there are bazillions of investment opportunities available to all of us. And it's overwhelming. We need to figure out how to narrow down our buckets in a way that is in alignment with who we are, and that's why the how is important. It's about the who we are. So who wants to share their how, or what they think their how might be? No one?
I
Megan
will
does.
keep sharing, but if you guys want to, use your voices too, I'd love to hear that. I tend to be very overpowering, so I'm trying to be aware of it, so, anyone else?
You're it.
Excellent, okay, here we go. My how would be, right at this point, not my vision down the future, would be not being overwhelmed by choices and not understanding. If you've grown
Yeah.
up poor and you get money, you spend money like a poor person. And I
Mhm.
mean that as, this is the only time I'm gonna have it, let's go have fun with it, instead of thinking about, what about 6 months,
Mhm.
a year down the, how can I have more money
Mhm.
6 months, a year down, instead of having this right now?
Yeah.
So my how is very confuddled and confused, and
I'm gonna write
I
some
don't
word down.
know how to do with money, and I don't know what to do with it once I've got it, other than spend it. And you've told me I have control over that, so I'm interested.
Cool. So yeah, two things stuck out to me, and that is, one of your values is, maybe it's a struggle for you, but that's kind of separate from the fact that it's a value, and that's to be disciplined around money.
Yeah,
And the other that I heard was something about not letting it take up too much of your time so that you have time to do the things that are important. So those are two great hows. And that may not be all of yours, but those are two great examples.
I promise I'm not keeping anything from you, I'm discovering them as we're doing this.
I know. So anyone else want to throw out a quick how? What is a value that you want to apply to your wealth building journey? Stephen came up with a good one at our last class, and I meant to write it down and I didn't, and I knew I was going to forget. You don't remember either. That's okay. Anyone else have a yeah?
Can you explain a little bit? Maybe like my mind, I didn't have enough coffee. But when you say how values,
Mhm.
how it relates house to values?
How do I relate a how to a value?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the how is, I mean, essentially that's how I define a how. And same with the start with why process that you might apply to your business. But the hows are all about what guides your decision making. So it's the who you are that steers the ship in the right direction, which again might be climate conscious, it might be passive investing so that I can spend time with my family, it might be, we had somebody at our last class, oh man, what were they very into? I think it was climate stuff, like solar production, moving the world away from fossil fuels. So that's very much a how. Yeah. And it could also be part of your process too. Well, not in Megan's example, but some people are inherently active investors. Like they want control. So control is a how. It's not for me. I'm on the other side. I'm happy to give up that control if I believe in the team. So that's something to consider as well on the how.
Like saving money is a how?
So a how might be around saving money. It might be that around the security of having liquid assets. So part of your guiding principles might be that I have 6 months worth of reserves in a liquid account, for example. Yeah.
I'm not sure if it falls into that, but like for our family, we like to travel a lot.
Yeah.
And so we envision like going to different places and looking for investment properties and writing off our trips. And then also having like a home to stay in if we travel and it's empty at that time, like if there's, a month in between tenants, then we can go stay at them. That's
Awesome. Yeah, so I hear a little bit of maybe a small bit of a why in there. But yeah, actually, no, that absolutely is a how. So that would be almost like fun investing, right? Like merging the two, experiences and investing. So yeah, that could be absolutely a guiding principle. And including the family in the decision. That's a guiding principle too. We're working on that with our little ones. It's more challenging than, no, it's a fun challenge.
You can invest in Minecraft, can't you?
I don't know.
I
Oh, well,
actually
is
don't
that
know.
Microsoft? I think it's Micro. Well, anyway, I don't know. Yeah, our older one's actually pretty big into, thinking about investing. Scared to pull the trigger. And then he bought a bunch of First Republic stock when it tanked, so that was good timing. It's fine. Okay, any other thoughts on the how? Before we move on to the what's, you get the, are we on the same page as far as the importance of defining the why and then the how before we move on to the what's? Because the what's like what we actually do. But if we don't have a guide, it, to Megan's point, might be overwhelming and suck up all your time and lead you to inaction. So that's why we do the why and the how. All right.
One is,
Yep.
I think it's the focus and the knowledge you have to implement, really. How you do it is, if you don't have knowledge, you can run around, not achieve what you want to achieve. So the knowledge is key in all this.
Right. Okay. So you might say part of your one of your guiding principles is fully understanding and being educated in whatever you're investing in.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
For sure, yeah.
Okay. And it is good to document these things because then when you have a deal and you're all excited about it, you can go back and look at your values that you decided are your values and very quickly decide if it's going to fit. And that would have kept us out of some investments that turned out not so great. So it's part of your checklist.
At least you're a step ahead with investing, even if it's bad. I'm just spending, which does nothing.
Well,
I've
it's-
experienced in all of the good stuff, memories, that's what
Yes.
it does do.
There you
right?
go.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. All right, well, let's move on to the what if we're ready. So the what is your actual strategy, whatever it is that you're going to execute on your plan. And so for us, that's passive investing with tax efficiency, mostly real estate based. Why? Because we understand it. While we don't have it written down, I do think, and we will, because it just went into my head, G2 made a good point about being educated in what you are investing in. That is definitely one of our values, and so it will become part of our how. And that's why largely real estate based. Crossover into energy and agriculture. Why? Because we're in a rough spot with both around the world. Energy, goal being bring it domestic, move it to green, and agriculture because everyone needs to eat, it turns out. And with climate change, that's a place that it actually well, it could be also very lucrative. They also need the money to invest in technology and crop change to be effective in a new climate world. And then cash flow positive is part of our what. Might seem obvious, but some investments are not necessarily cash flow positive. If you're buying a rental in San Francisco, you're probably going to spend money on it every month. I used the wrong word. You're probably going to invest money in it every month because the cash flow isn't great. And it's not bad, it's just not part of our strategy. So anyone want to throw out what their strategy is now that they've been a little bit more guided by their why and their how? Or some words that come to mind.
I don't have a strategy, that's why I'm here, but I'm listening to everybody else's because that's clearly lacking
Yeah.
and not gonna make my why and how possible.
Yep, okay, good.
I also would like to invest in properties that I can take advantage personally as well. Like I think it's nice to know that you have a rental where you can also spend time.
Okay.
Investment property. And I don't know if that's for the sake of saving in my head. It's like, okay, I'm not gonna, since I'm going there, I'm not gonna spend the thousands of dollars that I spend every year.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's another gain from that investment.
Yep, okay.
So,
Yeah, that's absolutely, that's part of a strategy. So an investment that also lowers your expenditure, keeps you from spending so much.
right.
Yeah,
And in that sense,
great.
a duplex would be better.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like to go into more details, what would make that more possible, more real?
Right.
Better.
Great. Okay. Anyone else have anything to share? Okay.
Although I don't like the active part of it, like.
Right. So, okay, so you might want to look at something like homeexchange.com, where you can trade your existing home for another home anywhere in the world whenever you want to go on a vacation, and then for free, and then invest your money passively, possibly.
I didn't know about that. I mean, I heard about it, but I didn't know the website, home exchange. If
.com.
someone wants to be where I
that is a challenge.
Yeah.
We lived in Oakland for a long time and started our home exchange journey there, and it was a little harder to find people that wanted to trade with us. Yes, but it happened. It did happen. We stayed in some great places. All right, let's see. Are we good to move on? So what's next? We've got our why, our how, our what. Gonna keep going with those question words. Now we talk about where. So this is where. So the idea here is, you've got your strategy, you've got your guiding principles, and you know why you're doing it. You are motivated like crazy. But we now need a map. We need to know where we are and where we want to go specifically. And so we're going to go through some exercises to figure that out. Because if you don't know where you are and where you want to go, how do you actually make a plan, right? You might get there by luck. It happens. And it's much better to execute on a plan that will get you there a lot faster. So where are you? How do you measure where you are? Megan's trying to hold it back.
Where are you in the process of?
So if we go through this exercise and you figure out that what you need is $1 bazillion in passive income a month, and that's where you need to go, how do you measure where you are so that you can connect the dots?
The videos you have now.
Yeah. So your financial health now. And there's lots of ways to measure it. We're going to talk about one in particular, and that is your net worth. Because net worth, your actual worth, can be translated pretty somewhat easily into passive income or whatever it is that your goal is. So regardless of what your why is and what the big vision is, net worth is probably a great thing to track, even if your desire is a passive income per month sort of thing. Because to get X number of dollars of passive income per month, you need X number of dollars of net worth. Because it's what produces the income. So that's why we're going to talk about net worth. And what is net worth? It's your assets minus your liabilities. What are those words? What's an asset? Something you own, yeah. Something that has value.
Worth value.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Minus the debt that you have on that.
And minus the debt, exactly, yes. So the debt would be in the liabilities column. But yeah, and these are kind of your big, that's getting kind of small, sorry. Your big 5 buckets here. Your cash or cash equivalents, your investments, your property, your businesses, and your others. And here's a longer list. And so the exercise here is to actually do it, like know what your assets look like. And it's okay if they're not giants or if there aren't any, that's okay, because it gives you clarity on where you are. And when you have clarity on where you are and you have clarity on where you're going, you can chart a path. So do this, and I'll show you some tools at the end for actually putting it together. But these are your assets. So everyone has some assets, yes? I know you do, actually. You wouldn't be here if you don't. Yes, yeah, you've got something here. You've got a business. Business is worth something. All right, what about on the other side, a liability? What's a liability?
Credit card debt.
Yep,
Mortgage.
Yep. Yeah. Here's a quick list there. Unpaid taxes, eek. Money owed to others, yeah. And then so the end goal here is that you end up with a balance sheet. Does this look familiar? You should have one for your business too. It's got your assets, your liabilities, and spits out what your business is worth, essentially. So this is an example of one, and I think I dumped this right into one of the resources I'll give you at the end, and just threw in some numbers here. But you see, it doesn't really, well, this person has a $1.6 million house, but otherwise, like, there's nothing mind-blowing here. Just put it together, know where you are. Whatever the number is, don't be ashamed of it. It just is. It could be a negative number, that's okay too. But knowing where you are helps us get to where we're going. Any questions on the net worth calculations is who's excited to, well, first of all, who knows their net worth? And I won't ask you what it is. 2? Okay, me and G2? 3, okay.
Well, I do, but
It doesn't matter what
it's a
the,
net minus.
it
It's
doesn't
not
matter.
worth.
Last year, I didn't do it this year.
Okay, okay. Yeah, again, it doesn't matter what the number is because we're not looking back at the past. It doesn't matter what you did or didn't do or what you could have done. None of that matters. It's about where are we right now and what can we do moving forward. Because that's what we can control, right? It might, you might have made bad decisions that you regret or whatever, but erase it all. Right here, forward. Okay, so we got a few of us. Who is scared to death to find out what their net worth is? I thought you knew.
Well, yeah, but it still scares me.
Oh, okay. So
It's not good, in case anyone's wondering, it's not good.
So, and who's
Yes, thank you.
who is excited to learn what their net worth is, since most of you don't know what your net worth is, and all of you are just the rest of you are just lackluster. You're like, eh.
No, I'm excited to find out how to fix it.
Cool. Okay. And a few people are excited to find out what it is. Okay. Great. Well, then do it. Right. Like this is step 1. It's not rocket science. Go online, see what's in your bank account, see how much credit card debt there is, see what you owe in your car. Go to Kelley Blue Book, find out how much your car is worth if it's yours. You guys are real estate agents, so if you own a house, you probably know roughly what it's worth. Subtract your mortgage, put that in the liabilities column. You can figure that stuff out. Yeah.
App like Quicken, you connect all of your bank
Mhm.
accounts and credit cards and
Yep.
mortgage. It basically does it for you.
That's right, yes. Yeah, there's a few of those services, Quicken, Mint.com, and
Yeah.
Personal Capital. That's one that we used for a while. I think I've got a slide with all that stuff on the end. But yeah, do something. If you're a spreadsheet person and you're never going to look online, fine, do it in a spreadsheet. If you love the online stuff and you want someone to log into your bank account for you, do it that way. That's fine too. Just do something. I went to a conference down in Palm Springs this past week, and that was like the overarching theme. It's just like do something, because do you guys know Brendan Burchard? Big performance coach, motivational speaker. Anyway, he's got a great book. You should read it. I don't remember what it's called. So there's my pitch for it. But he was talking about how discouragement leads to inactivity, and inactivity leads to discouragement.
Mhm.
So you end up in this downward spiral. And so what can you control in that equation? Well, you can control both, but you can especially control the inactivity. You can do something, and it doesn't matter if it's the right thing, or it might be wrong, or it's not perfect, but it's a lot better than nothing, because otherwise you end up on your downward discouragement spiral. So anyway, that was my big takeaway from this conference. 3 days, and I walk away with, do something. That's okay. Okay, I'm not ready for that. Okay, so that's the net worth exercise. So that's, if you don't have one, like that's the first thing you can do. Understand where you're at, and then we'll talk about some options for where you want to go. This will be largely driven by your why, but I'm just going to throw 3 examples up here to get your wheels spinning on the where you want to go thing. And maybe it'll be good if I draw a quick diagram here. Where you are, where you want to go. We're making a map, right? Like you can picture it as a pirate map if you want. Like that's what we're doing. This is your current net worth. This is whatever you want. Lots of them. And then we figure out what the path is. It's not rocket science. It's like a business plan, but it's for your money. It should be even more exciting, or equally, I guess. Okay. So these are some options. Some options to think about. Yours might be completely different or way bigger or smaller. I'm not judging. Financial security, though, just so that we have some definitions, is having passive income, meaning you're not working for it. It's coming from the capital assets side, not the human capital side, will cover your basic living expenses. And so how do you know what number that is? You guys can probably figure out your basic living expense cost, right? Cool. Okay. Financial independence. That means the capital assets produce cash flow that covers your entire current lifestyle. That's the easiest number to figure out. Just go into your bank account and see the total outbound money that you spent in an entire year. That's what it costs to keep you going. Now, if some of that was investments, you'll want to take that out. But like true expenses, to figure out your number. And I mean, it's not a bad exercise to figure out what each of these are for you, because then it's a target. It may not be the final target, but it may be a step along the way, right? And we can start to chart a course. So, and it might be it might be $10,000 a month. It might be $50,000 a month for this financial independence number. And then we're going to work backwards to figure out what that means, what you need ultimately your net worth to be, what kind of assets you need to produce that income. And then financial freedom, that's the most fun one, of course. That is imagining your ideal lifestyle and figuring out how much it costs. Has anyone done that before? That exercise? You have? Okay, what'd you find? How much do you need?
A lot.
Same here, it's okay. Do you want to share? Is that okay?
I think for that one time it was 20 to 50,000 a month.
Yep. Okay. Okay.
A few years ago at a road.
Yeah.
Class.
Very cool. Okay, so $20,000 to $50,000 a month for independence, or freedom. I'm sorry, for your freedom number. Okay. What about you?
There's a difference between, there are so many financial aspects, I mean, steps.
Yeah.
You know.
Right.
And you hear people saying, my goal is to have financial independence, financial freedom, but I know it's a difference between them.
Right.
Yeah.
And defining them means that we know what, like, it gives us a target, right? If we don't, these words are thrown around so much, and if it's like, I'm going for financial independence, but I don't know what that means, like, then I'm never gonna get there. But when you start defining these things and tie them to a number, then you can set them as benchmarks, set them as maybe a 2-year goal or a 6-year goal or whatever it is, doesn't matter, depending on your scenario. It does matter, but what I'm saying is all of you have different timelines, different numbers, and that's okay. It's important that you know your numbers and your timelines, though. Yeah, so the freedom number, though, is probably going to be big. I mean, we're talking about, like, if you're someone that wants to live in a mansion on Hawaii and have a private jet, like, you got to start calculating these things. So if who wants a jet? Who wants to own a jet? Good. All right. Oh, you do. Okay. Have you looked at how much a jet costs?
I have an idea.
I used one, maybe a couple $100,000.
Not a jet, not a working jet. You can totally buy a jet for a few $100,000, but it will not fly safely. Yeah, they're in the millions, like lots of millions. And the one that's like I probably will never own a jet. It's not on my
Can you timeshare?
current list. You
Yeah.
can,
Yes.
yes. Taylor Swift does with hers.
Wait, can you what?
Timeshare.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes.
Many people do.
Yeah, and that's the only way to do it.
Because it comes with the pilot, I think.
Somebody's got to pay that pilot though. But you're running it like a business. Is the point though? Is you have 2 pilots on staff or whatever, and it's millions of dollars a year just to own the thing and operate it. But anyway, if you were calculating by hours, if you want to take 2 trips a month on a private jet, you need probably $100,000 depending on where you're going per month.
I just want to be able to fly private.
Yeah.
I mean, not even first class, I want private.
Yep.
But I've got my own little shindig going with that. I've mentioned this to my son, who has now told me he wants to be a pilot so he can fly me. And I was like, great plan, Jonas, how do we get on this?
There you go. So, yes, and the question for him as a young entrepreneur, it turns out, what's the next step? Like, what can you do to take action?
He's got these crazy classes in school where he's having to plan this all out. He's
Oh,
14,
sweet.
I'm 43, so it's time I get on board. Thanks for having this
Yeah,
class.
of course. So he's doing something. That's awesome. Okay, so identify what these numbers are for you. And it might take a lot of work. It might be, it should be a lot of fun, especially the top one. Because again, that's where I would do a vision board with it personally. Like, go get some awesome luxury travel magazines and start cutting stuff out, and then figure out how much it costs to have that lifestyle. It's not cheap, I'll tell you that.
That's like vision board with a purpose, right?
Yes,
Like I often
well,
find vision
yes.
boards, well, it's my own personal perspective, everyone does what they do, I'm not very crafty, so vision boarding is very hard for me. But if it's like, I'm putting together a vision of my aspirational life, and then it's, the task is costing it all out,
Mhm.
and then now I've already got the goal of where I want to be, and then you can work backwards
That's
to map
right.
it out.
Yep. Oh, I love that. Put a nice little box with a bow on it. That's great. So for those of you that aren't into vision boards like Megan, there's a way to do it. That's awesome. Get me back in. Okay. Shall we keep rolling? Or any questions about the ladder?
I
Yes.
didn't know the financial security means passive income. I thought I had financial security because I had so much saving to
Mhm.
cover a little bit. But then if by that definition, I don't have any financial security, I feel very insecure now.
So, well, I apologize for that. These definitions, like the point here is to have definitions. So you may feel financially secure because your definition is a little different. That is okay. What I would challenge you on is essentially how long could you last?
Not
Like,
too long, but.
yeah. Because the idea of this financial security is it lasts forever. You could stop working, and your passive income is covering your basic living expenses. So it's a little different. And you may also be, I don't know, if you're sitting on enough cash, you could relocate some of that to investments that are producing, shedding money, if you will. Yeah. Okay, let's keep rolling. Oh my goodness, get out of the way. Okay. Oh man, I love this. Okay, I also did Tony Robbins recently, so I'm kind of all fired up. So success cycle. Has anyone seen this before?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Maybe it's a Tony Robbins thing. Maybe he stole it from someone else. It doesn't really matter.
It was also covered in Quantum Leap, something
Oh
similar.
yeah. Okay. Oh cool. Okay. So the idea here is that we all have a set amount of potential. And in this context, we're talking about wealth building. So we all have a set amount of potential to build wealth. And that's what we have inside of us, and that's what it's going to be. That potential that we think we have leads to some amount of action, hopefully in proportion with our potential, but maybe not. So you might have diminishing action compared to what your potential is. And then your action produces some results, right? In proportion to the action that you took. Those results are then going to solidify whatever belief you have about your worth, because we're talking about wealth building. And your belief is going to impact your potential.
Huh.
Yes. So
Well,
it's,
I know why I'm on the downward spiral now.
right. So that's kind of what I was getting at. Is just like the discouragement inactivity thing. It's a spiral. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, both negatively and positively. So regardless of what your potential is and what your results you're currently seeing, we've got some things that we can do about it, right? So which two items on here do we think we have control over? Action and belief, exactly. And so we'll start with action because that's a little bit, well, they're both actually incredibly simple. But to get the results you're looking for, you need to take an appropriate amount of action. And your results are, if you're taking the right action, your potential and your results are the same, right? Like you can achieve your potential if you're doing the actions that will get those results. But if you choose not to do the actions, you're not going to get the results. So we can control that. We can control the actions that we take. And what about belief? So belief is, it's in our heads and our hearts. Like we have control over that too. And if we let our inactivity cause crappy results, which make us believe that we're not worth it, we're declining our potential, which is going to cause us to take less action, and we're going to end up in the death spiral, or whatever you want to call it. So belief is even more, it's the most important thing on here. And so we have to believe, maybe as hard or as easy as it is, that we're worth it, that our why is worth it. And I think I have an animation here to bring up a little quote here. Yeah, okay. You'll never make more than you think you're worth.
Yeah.
That's it right there. So we got to start there. We got to believe that we're worth it. And are we?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, we are. Thank you. whatever our potential is, we absolutely are worth that. And what is our potential?
Our actions.
Unlimited.
Unlimited. That's the right answer. Thank you. Absolutely. Our potential is limitless. In our wealth building journey, you want to be an Elon Musk or whatever. Don't be Elon. You want to be of that caliber wealth. Like, you gotta believe it, and you gotta take the appropriate actions. You may not like the actions. They may not be in alignment with your how. So careful. And that's how you get there. You believe that you're worth it, and then you take the action.
I don't know if the rest of you have kids, but if you do, you probably had this conversation of what would your superpower be? And every time I tell my kids my superpower would be confidence and my sidekick would be humility. And they hate it because they want me to be invisible or fly or something. But it's,
Go back in time.
yeah, right. But it's like I said, I don't like either of these people, but if I had the confidence of Donald Trump or Kanye West, the amount that I could do, like their belief in themselves, I don't like what they've done with their beliefs, but they have a very strong belief in themselves.
Yeah.
And then seeing this is explained in my last year because my belief in myself is very diminished. And I see potential in myself, but because I haven't acted on it and the results are showing that I haven't acted on it, I'm in a belief that I suck, so you spiral down.
Yep. Yeah. Boop. Any other thoughts on the success cycle?
I will for sure. I will for sure.
I don't feel like that's oversharing. Like we're all humans. We're all going through something.
Well, now none of you know me, and I'm joining the office. Now you really know me.
This is Megan, everyone. Newest member. Yeah. Any thoughts? Yes.
I think the first action if you can take any aha from the class, is to basically track your numbers.
Yeah.
Be it business or personal. As soon as you know where you are.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only way you would decide where you need to go. But before anything else you can do, you have to see, where you are, how much you're worth.
Absolutely. Is everyone committed to doing that exercise at the very least? You do nothing else.
Just at least track your numbers.
Find out where you
Yeah.
are, and then
And
track
if you
it.
can't do it, have somebody else do it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I suffered at the beginning of my business in the restaurants because I thought I was the only one who could track the numbers, and I kept delaying it. And then, I wanted to know, not on the monthly basis, not on the weekly basis, like a day by day, did we make any money or did we lose any money?
Mm-hmm.
And for a long time, I thought I'm the only one who could do it, and I didn't do it, and I kept delaying it. I had somebody else do it, and then it made a lot of
And
sense.
it got done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as a business
It's a
owner,
tedious process.
right? Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we do it here. Yeah, it's important as the business owner to see the number on whatever cycle you want. In your case, daily. For some of you, it might be weekly or monthly.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily your job to go in and like work the books.
Yeah, exactly.
If that's your superpower, great, do it. If that brings you pleasure, also. But otherwise, there are people that will absolutely love to do that for you and take your money.
Yeah.
And it's worth every penny, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's find out what's next. I forget what the next slide is. Oh, yes. Oh, this quote. We don't want our own inaction to be the cause of pain. Someone said that. I heard it. I don't remember who was on stage, but I wrote it down. So if you need a motivator, use this as your motivator. Like some people, and Tony Robbins preaches this a lot, is that the biggest push towards action is away from pain. We avoid pain so much better than we go after pleasure. So if you need to tie your inaction to someone's pain, whether that be your own or someone else's, do it. Do it to drive you into action. Whether that's your kids or your spouse or your grandkids down the road, your legacy that you could have left but aren't. Whatever it is, use it. All right. That was a little heavy. Any thoughts before we move on to section 3 in our last few minutes? Okay, let's talk about financial disciplines.
So I think this
Yes.
fundamental, I like what you said earlier about your mindset,
Mhm.
your potential. I think a lot of people have fear of the unknown.
Yes.
And they actually don't go and try things.
Right.
You have to try, if you don't try, first of all, you'll never fail. Right? That's the reality of life, right?
Right.
And if you do try, guess what? You may even do well. So the biggest thing I see in characters is that they have this unknown fear.
Yeah.
Whether it's investment or going after new education or learn some new techniques.
Yeah.
It's just a fear of failure or fear of unknowns that overwhelms them to some degree, and they just feel that's what I can do.
Right.
So no, you can do far more.
And I suspect that right there is why confidence is the superpower you want. Yeah, okay. So what is confidence and how do we get it on our wealth building journey? Quick timeout. Confidence. Where does confidence come from?
Knowledge.
Knowledge. I'm going to stick with C words, so we're going to go with competency. Competency. I think I spelled it right.
What's the word for experience? What you have experienced?
Yeah, well, yes, competency is essentially the knowledge and experience coming together. Yes, yeah. That's how I see it, at least. And how do you get competency in your wealth building journey? You learn stuff and then you do stuff.
Knowledge and experience.
Yeah. Where else does confidence come from?
Your parents.
I'm sorry.
Your parents.
Parents and what?
Lessons, like mistakes.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, so, and I would put that into competency as well. Yeah, you're going to gain competency by failing. It's okay to fail. You fail forward.
And success as well.
And successes, yes. Yeah, fail fast.
Learning.
Yep, yeah.
or-
Absolutely. So I confidence also, so it's a sum of three things in my view. One of them is clarity.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's been a big word of today. And that's why we keep talking about where are you? Where are you going? That's clarity. Competency of learning what needs to actually happen to make it happen. And then the last one is consistency. Consistency.
I was going to say commitment, but you're right.
Commitment, consistency, yeah. It's actually following through and doing the thing as much as it needs to be done. It's taking action not just once, but as many times as needed. So yes, and so this is like the counter to fear, essentially. If you have fear, instead gain confidence by gaining clarity, competency, and consistency.
That could be your how, what, and why.
That's sure, yeah. I
As
mean,
well, too.
those are, yeah, I would consider those hows, I guess, guiding values that help define, well, you view it however you need
just
to.
thinking out loud and my mouth goes because my brain went.
I love that. Ugh, okay, whoa, it's steering itself. Okay, so financial disciplines. We talked about, yeah, discipline and consistency. So we've got 7, if I remember correctly, areas to think about and focus on in our financial world to gain competency and clarity in, and then taking consistent action. And the first one is income and benefits planning. Now in our world, what does that mean? Business planning. How do you create a business that will produce you profits? I assume that's where most of you are earning most of your money at this point. Maybe I'm wrong. Again, if you're in the W-2 world, it's time to think about asking for raises or looking for other jobs or whatever if your income isn't where you want it to be. Next is cash flow planning. So this is thinking about where our money is coming from and going to, and is it coming from the right places and going to the right places in the maximum efficient way. So that's kind of thinking about your budget, for example. Cash flow planning may also come into thought when you are investing with a leveraged asset. So if you're buying a house and it's got a mortgage, you might be doing a great job investment. That's the next one. Oop, no, it's not. You might be doing a great job investing for your future, and you might put yourself in a really tight cash flow position because your mortgage, even though a lot of it's going to pay yourself as it reduces your principal, makes money tight on a monthly basis or whatever. Yeah. Tax planning is next. How do you pay less tax? And what can you do to maximize your tax efficiency? And how do you find that out? Who feels like they're paying too much tax? Let's start with that. Okay. So conversation with a CPA is probably a great place to start. What can we do? And specific questions, not just, hey, here's my taxes, what do them? But hey, what can we do to lower my tax burden? And there's, yes?
There's a book called The Power of Zero.
Power Zero, yes. There's also,
Like how to pay almost zero tax
Mhm.
in the long run. Maybe not right away, with proper planning and all that.
right. Power of Zero, and then I just saw the guy speak, I think it's tax-free wealth? Tax-free wealth. Tax-free wealth, yes. Tax-free wealth. And you guys are in the right industry for this, for two reasons. One, IRS loves business owners and gives you the ability to write off all sorts of crazy things. Great example, you want to host a client event and you have a great house to host them in, host it in your house and charge your business, I should say. That is tax-free money. You can, I forget what the limits are, so check with your CPA, but you can go find a similar sized venue and figure out what it would cost to rent for the day, document it, have your business write yourself a check, your business gets to write it off, and it's tax-free on the individual side. Pretty cool stuff. Retirement planning is another great one. We have the ability as self-employed people to put pre-tax dollars up to, I don't know, almost $60,000 a year in pre-tax dollars, which means you're saving, what, $20-ish thousand in taxes to put towards your future wealth.
Who's the author on tax-free wealth?
Don't remember.
We'll look it up.
I'm-
Power of Zero is
I could
David-
pick him out of a
David
lineup.
McKnight. Oh.
I'm sensing consistency in the not remembering, but taking the right information that you do remember.
Wheelwright CPA.
Wheelwright, yeah, that's right. Wheel, like a bicycle wheel? I think that's right. Wheel,
Yeah,
right.
Wheelwright.
Wheelwright, okay. Yeah, all sorts of great ideas in there. And then, so that's one reason that you're in good hands with reducing your tax income is because you're self-employed people. The other, yes?
Oh, I didn't really want to stop you.
Oh, that's okay.
But it's interesting. I think the mindset of accountants, CPAs, and even me is how making sure we are not missing deductions.
Right.
But it's so much more than
Yeah.
that.
It's a lot more.
It's a different way.
It's another strategy.
Right. So when you're just looking for not missing deductions, you're basically taking it's backwards looking. You're taking what you already did and how do I pay as little tax on that income and expense that I already did. When we're talking about tax planning, we're talking about, given what I did last year, how can I do even better this year? How can I change my strategy to optimize my tax situation?
The CPAs don't do
The right ones will.
the right ones.
Yes. This guy, tax-free wealth dude, he runs a network of hundreds of CPAs with like a mission in mind for tax planning. I don't remember what his network is called. It's probably called Tax-Free Wealth Professionals or something. But look that up and see if one of those CPAs is right for you. Wheelwright does Robert Kiyosaki's taxes, so he knows what he's talking about. That's the Rich Dad, Poor Dad guy. Tax-free wealth. Okay, so business owner, awesome. Real estate investor, also awesome. IRS loves real estate investors and provides all sorts of amazing write-offs, such as, I forget who was mentioning that, traveling to see your properties. Thank you for that. So if you want to visit Hawaii once a year, go buy a condo there and rent it out, and you can spend, I forget the rules, 2 weeks, I think, up to 13 nights, I want to say, and write off the whole trip, assuming you're well documenting it and all that.
Is it only domestic or also international?
I don't know. That's a great question. Talk to your CPA. Yeah.
There's another CPA, Ed Slot, you may have heard of. Ed
Ed.
Slot.
Slot.
Yeah, CPA. He just came out with a book a couple of years ago about tax something time bomb.
Okay. Is it
Yeah.
like that?
Yeah, Ed Slot.
Slot. Okay.
CPA.
CPA. Okay. Cool. Thank you. CPA. Okay. So yeah, on the investment side, tons of stuff you can do. So that's one, traveling to see your properties, maybe abroad, I don't know. You can also write off the value of the property itself, the actual structure, through depreciation. Right now, there's bonus depreciation available, meaning with the right asset, you can invest $1 and you'll get a negative $1 as your on your tax. What do you say? K1 or whatever comes in, whatever tax form comes in. So essentially, potentially a 1-for-1. Invest $1, get $1 deduction on your taxes. And obviously it's growing in the meantime. $1 is a terrible example because you won't be able to invest $1 anywhere. $100,000, whatever.
On a scratch and win, Joe, are you saying the lottery's not a good investment?
I mean, it depends what you know, I guess. If you know where the winning ticket is, go for it. Okay, so yeah, real estate investing, awesome stuff for tax planning. All right, what else do we need to talk about up here? There's that's like classes. Steve puts on a great tax class also. Like that's a whole class on its own.
Hmm?
It's not
Retirement.
the new retirement savings that.
Time bound, yeah.
All right, investment planning is next. So these are all pieces of your wealth journey. That's kind of what we're talking about here, and each might have its own plan. So investing, obviously, kind of the nuts and bolts of building wealth, and you can do it much faster if you do the other things right, which is why they're also important and on here. But that's charting the course for your what, knowing where you are and what you need to do to get to where you want to go. And then retirement planning. We're all going to retire someday, soonish, right? It's not that far off, even when we're young like me, right? And we have to think about that. So that's where, it's all about having a plan, right? Like, how long do you want to spend in retirement? What kind of lifestyle do you want? Great. What do you need to be? What do you need to do? Where do you need to be? And that doesn't necessarily mean 401k land or IRAs or whatever. You can plan for retirement through buying the right investments for the long term. So if that's your plan, that's great. And don't forget, at some point, the human capital is going to shut off. And you'll want to live whatever lifestyle you want to live using passive income. And that's retirement. Whether that's in 2 years or 30 years. Yeah.
So, I don't have a financial advisor.
Mm-hmm.
Would love to have one because I feel I am making the best of what someone has financially is essential, because if you're not investing right, you're losing money to inflation and to and not having someone oversee kind of your retirement, or I feel it's not good.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
scary.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's part of your team, is having a great financial planner or advisor. They don't necessarily have to plan for you, but having someone advise for you is
But it's different than CPI.
Oh, yes. Yes. And so on the financial advisor front, my only piece of advice is to find a fiduciary. Just like we're fiduciaries for our client and legally required to act in their best interest, a fiduciary financial advisor is legally required to act in your best interest. That's what you want, right? You might be surprised, though, that a lot of financial planners and advisors aren't fiduciaries. They're salespeople. They make money on commissions by selling you investments. So make sure to...
Certified financial advisor is the fiduciary. Certified, or just financial planners are, I could go ahead and be one, and that's a scary thought. So.
I think it's the certified that makes the difference. But you can just ask them, hey, are you a fiduciary?
Yeah.
That's the word.
Fiduciary. Yes.
Huh.
Yes. Yep.
And tending to get a flat fee as opposed to somebody who makes percentages on your investments. It's the way you decide to look at it, but for me, I'd rather be charged a flat fee because I'm paying for your advice.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be paying for you to make money on my investments as well.
Right.
My investments that are non-existent. Very worried about somebody making money off me that I haven't put in or don't invest.
Yeah, it's an interesting industry, though, because it's especially prevalent on the stock side. So people make money by selling you a mutual fund or whatever, and then even if that mutual fund doesn't do well at all, they're still making money, which is that's their industry, and if you're educated, you might still choose to work with them, that's great, but you want a fiduciary, in my view.
I have a question. If your retirement is in Fidelity, let's say,
Mhm.
are those fiduciary financial advisors?
I don't think so.
That's just a-
So it doesn't have to be related to a big like investment?
Right, it doesn't have to be.
Okay.
I think nowadays, the fiduciary thing in that world is fairly new, actually. And so I'm guessing that a lot of the big firms are hiring fiduciaries or upgrading their people to fiduciaries. But it's ask questions. All right, let's keep going. Okay, estate planning. So a lot of you guys talked about leaving a legacy. So part of your wealth building plan would be to figure out how to leave it without the government taking a lot of it. So that's what estate planning is all about. You don't have a lot of assets, you probably don't need to talk to an estate planner at this point, but keep it in mind.
On this note of
Yeah.
estate planning, I've interacted with quite a few property owners.
Yeah.
And then something happens to one of them, then they end up in some probates.
Right.
Because simple things like that, people don't have a will, they don't have at all any planning. If you even have a single house, you should have some kind of a will or some kind of estate planning.
Yeah.
Because that causes complication, and our life is, you know, when it ends.
Right,
Even
right.
if you own a single property, I think there should be some kind of estate planning.
Yeah, and in this state, the way to avoid the probate is a trust.
Yeah.
A will is not good enough. It might make things a little bit simpler, but really, the trust is the right
Trust.
vehicle.
Right.
So if you're owning, if you have a lot of assets or a house, it might be worth talking to an estate attorney and figuring out what makes sense for your situation. And they might tell me, like mine told me, I asked about my mother-in-law who owned a condo, and that was basically it. And he said, yeah, don't worry about it. Like, she has one daughter. Like, it's kind of clear what's going to happen. It might suck a little to go through probate, but it's probably not worth the time to do the paperwork. Anyway, that's what he told me. Your person might say something different. Or maybe he was busy and didn't want my money. That could be too.
You're just losing money 'cause it's expensive.
Probate? Well, it's
It's time.
stressful. It can be expensive. It can cause family feuds.
Yeah.
Because it's not crystal clear where the property is supposed to go.
attorney's fees and all
This
that.
is left ambiguity, right? None of us knows.
Yeah, yeah,
We just don't trust.
yeah. So the trust just keeps things super
Trust.
clean. Yeah, and they get fancy too. We were talking with our guy. Yeah, you can do all sorts of stuff with trusts to avoid taxes and shelter. Yeah. Anyway, talk to a planner as you grow your asset base, an estate planner, to figure out what's right in your situation.
So are these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people?
7.
7.
Imagine.
7 different?
Are they? The top one's probably you,
Yeah.
or a business coach in our case, all of our case. Cash flow planning and investment planning might be the same person, or you, especially on the cash flow. Like put a budget in place, simple tools like that to reduce your spending so that your cash flow is appropriate for your lifestyle. Tax planning is going to be a CPA who is forward-looking, not backwards-looking. Retirement planner is also probably the financial person, financial advisor. And then estate attorney, and then risk management insurance planning. So that's maybe one or both of the following. It may be an asset protection attorney. So as you grow your assets, how do you shield them from liability from suits or whatever? So you maybe have worked with an investor that's got their LLC that theoretically shields them from liability if something were to happen at that property. So that's one way of risk management. And then the other is on the insurance side. Do you have an umbrella policy in place that covers all your assets in the case of some sort of lawsuit? Whether it's frivolous or not doesn't matter, because as Stephen Klein is up here saying all the time, is you can either say here's my insurance company or here's my attorney who I'm going to pay hourly for, and I would much rather give him my insurance company's card. So you're either, for the bottom one, you're either talking to an insurance person, an asset protection attorney, or both, depending on your situation. Start with insurance, that's the cheap and easy one.
think if you have homeowners and auto insurance from the same carrier,
Mhm.
it's easier and cheaper to get umbrella.
Yeah.
And you could get a really cheap umbrella for even $2 million, you know.
Right.
It's very inexpensive.
Yeah, it was, I want to say, well, things have changed. I haven't looked at my bill this year. But yeah, $2 million of coverage was a few $100s,
Yeah,
I think,
yeah,
a year.
yeah.
So, and essentially what happens is.
It's usually never touched.
Right.
You know, but
Yeah.
let's say you are in an accident and I think accidental insurance only covers up to 300.
Mhm.
Somebody sues you for $500,000,
Mhm.
you know, that's what the umbrella kicks in.
Yeah. The example that Stephen Klein often uses is if you're in an accident with 4 cardiologists, for example, and all 4 of them can't work, what is the value
Oh my God.
of that suit? A lot.
Yeah.
So, yes, your standard insurance will not be enough to cover that sort of suit. And you want to make sure that the rest of your assets are protected, which is the whole point of an umbrella.
Well, they would have their own insurance, right?
Hopefully, but their insurance might want to come after your insurance. You had something?
Well, I mean, do you recommend having an LLC for investment properties or?
Ugh.
That's like it's always like kind of, everyone says it's an individual thing, but.
Yeah, we found that, I'm going to speak from personal experience, this is not legal advice. We found them to be a giant pain in the butt. Filing taxes was the worst. The protection was in California, because in California, you can find out who owns the LLC. So if I want to sue you as LLC owner, I can find your name and I will name you and the LLC. And so it's going to suck for you either way. And then taxes in California, we have an $800 minimum tax due on every entity that does business in California, even though chances are these are pass-through entities that will owe no tax, you will still owe $800. So we're paying our CPA to do a return for the LLC plus the $800, and for what? And you just need to be clear on the for what.
Do you think that, so they can sue you individually? I mean, I know they can find out who you are,
In
but.
California, you can sue anyone for anything.
So basically, it isn't as much protection, it's just starting to have a bigger umbrella.
Well, so theoretically, if we play this out, so you get sued and your LLC gets sued, and you have a proper corporate veil, meaning when it gets to court or whatever, whoever the powers that be are can say, like, your suit is dismissed. The one against you, because you are not the owner, the LLC is, even though you're the owner of the LLC, it's the entity responsible. But you still paid attorney's fees to defend to that point. So then your LLC is shielding essentially your other assets should a judgment be made against it.
I think that is probably the key point, that, you know, your other assets are protected against any liabilities on this asset.
Right.
So most
Yeah.
of the developers I work with, they always have an LLC.
Well, when you're working with developers, that's a different level of risk. Like we were owning, and we're out of this business now, but we were owning rental units. Like they were good buildings and decent neighborhoods. So our risk was already, low compared to ground up construction, where someone can step on a nail and sue you. And we did go the LLC route, which was probably. I only regret, honestly, the California one, the for the property in California. Is that true? I don't know. It was a pain for us.
Did each rental property have their own LLC?
We pooled them together based on risk. So we had 2 neighboring fourplexes in Alabama. They were in the same LLC.
Did you
But-
have a different LLC for each state?
I'm happy to share our structure. It was really interesting. We had 2 LLCs that were registered in Alabama and in Wyoming. Why Wyoming? Because if someone wanted to find out who the actual human is, they have to go to Cheyenne, I think, and physically look through the archives.
Oh.
So that's one trick. Wyoming is great for that. So if you're into that sort of shielding privacy, Wyoming's awesome. So they were registered in Wyoming and owned by another LLC registered in Wyoming and in California, which is required because we're residents of California. So that's how our structure was for our out-of-state rentals. So.
But if you had 4 rentals, each in California and did 4 LLCs, you're paying at least $800 for the whatever California LLC tax that comes out, which would be $3,200 a year, plus the CPA fees for each one of those.
And registered agent fees and whatever each individual state requires, business tax filings, etc. We had our Alabama LLCs registered in Wyoming and not in California. It was the LLC that owned those 2 Alabama LLCs that was registered in California.
And that's because you have to, because you're a resident of California, but you're
So-
still
yeah.
allowed to have those other guys.
So theoretically, California state law, tax law, says that, oh shoot, I used to know the wording because I was really digging in deep to see if I was breaking the rules, and it turns out I was. Essentially, if the effective owner is a California resident, it has to be registered in California, and you
The
have to
LLC.
pay. And you have to pay $800.
So you could have LLC owning another LLC in Wyoming.
Yeah.
That would.
Well, that's how we, again, the reason we did that is because it shielded the FTB's eyes
Yeah.
from who owned that LLC.
In Wyoming.
Because they would have to go to Wyoming. But that doesn't make it any more legal, I guess.
But it's
Um,
not easy, it's not really easy that you go online and.
Right, so we assumed, yes, we were taking the risk and mitigated it by going through this Wyoming structure.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, even if you're gonna enter a partnership with someone else to buy something in another state and they live in another state, theoretically, whatever that partnership entity is, it needs to register here in California for $800.
And this is if you have an LLC, but if you don't, that's why kind of you're saying just regular ownership.
I'm not advising
Yes,
anything.
You're sharing your experience.
Yes, yes. So I'm saying if I were to do it again, I would think long and hard about it. I'm not saying that I would skip the LLCs, especially for the out-of-state stuff. I think I would for our Oakland properties, which is crazy because it seems like they'd be higher risk, and it's, I don't know, it just seemed like a big pain in the butt.
You don't do separate LLCs for each property in California, do you?
We did not.
It would just be all under the same.
Yeah. But that,
Increases risk, right?
yes, because if someone trips on your sidewalk at one property, you suddenly expose all the properties in that LLC to that risk.
Which is what you got the LLC do, was to
Yes.
protect the
So
asset.
then,
So what are you protecting against is the question.
yeah, then you might as well just not even do the LLC and pay the $800.
Right, or like we did in Alabama, pool like risk properties together. So the idea there was if someone tripped and sued, they were called Alphabet Alabama 1 and 2. So if someone sued Alphabet Alabama 1, our assets in Alabama 2 were protected and safe, theoretically.
And you could
Whereas-
get a good insurance umbrella product, and then
Probably.
that could shield you from the risk of,
Yep.
okay.
On each property?
Or a commercial
Or each.
umbrella, yeah. Yep.
What was the financing on LLC for real estate?
Oh, yeah, so that's the other challenge with LLCs, is they're very hard to get financing for.
So you can get 20% down and.
Well, you can, but you have to find a lender that's happy to do it, and First Republic is the only one that I've found for residential 1 to 4 units that is happy to do LLC lendings, because
now
they get
I
it.
think it's
No.
owned by the bank.
No, First Republic's fine right now, at least as of this morning. A little fast-paced. But yeah, they're used to doing business. They're also great for self-employed people because they get it. Like that's their main clientele, which is also why they're a lot more secure than the news lets on, because they are very well diversified and have a very intelligent base for the most part. Where were we going with that? I don't remember.
Sure.
Oh, financing.
Liabilities.
What's that?
Liabilities.
Liabilities and financing, yeah. So what we did, just give quick context on financing, which again avoids half the point of having an LLC, is we bought them in our own names, and the next day we transferred them to the LLC. And we had to buy them in our own names so that we could do financing with a conventional lender. So then if anyone was going to look up on tax records, like they can see us. They know exactly who bought the property and transferred its non-arm's length, whatever, to an LLC. So I don't know, it's all a little silly, but talk to an asset protection attorney before you make any big decisions, and your insurance person. All right, so there's the 7 disciplines. I think I have a quick review, and then we can chat if there's any more questions.
Will
So
you
just
be providing us these slides?
sure.
Thank you.
So quick reminder, we did the flow of money, what we can control. There's not a lot in here. We can control what we do, how hard we work, how much we spend, how much we invest, and how much we pay in taxes. That is something that we have some control over. Not complete, but some. We talked about our why, our how, and our what. And thank you, Megan, for being vulnerable and sharing so much around your why, how, and what. And we talked about our benefits and whatnot. Did I leave with oh yeah, resources. Okay. So a few quick resources. The first place to start is whenmakegive.com. WhenMakeGive is a free financial, there's a podcast and workbook series. I think it's 12 steps or something that will help you. It's hands-on, get you clarity, and help you figure out what the very next steps to take. And I'll share these in an actual link where you can click on them, because I think even when you take a picture, you won't be able to. Just kidding. But there's simple net worth trackers for those that are into spreadsheets. I added a link to Personal Capital, which is the one I use. This one is super powerful. Compounded value of optional expenses. So the question here is, how much does a $7 cup of coffee actually cost you in the long run? Because you're losing your ability for that $7 to compound over time. When I spend it today, it's gone forever. If I invest it today, next year it's $7 and whatever it is, 30 cents. The following year, it's going to be painful. Yes, yes, and you need it. You need to look at it.
And Joe still buys $7 coffee.
And I still. Oh, I do. Okay, so I'll send all that over, and
His investments are solid, and he's like, I can afford it.
Yeah, that's his passive income he's putting
Yes.
into that
Yeah.
$7 coffee.
That's right. Well, sort of. And there are places in here that, like, I have a lot of growing to do too. I don't teach this because I'm perfect. I teach it because, yeah, thank you. Oh, no worries. Because it reminds me and gets me clarity to get back on my path whenever I stray. So we're all, yeah.
I feel that we have one life, and that cup of coffee is worth it
Yes.
sometimes.
Yes, I am not saying it's not. Well, I'm not
Clearly
saying
you're
it's not,
not.
because I buy those $7 cups of coffee.
It's like we still have to enjoy life, and there
Yes. And it helps
things
us.
that make us happy.
Right. It does also, it helps us make decisions though. Whenever you're pondering, like, should I, like, I could enjoy that third drink or whatever it is, right? That third $25 cocktail. Like, it can help you make the choice. Like, oh yeah, the long-term value of this is actually, $150 when I retire, or whatever the number is. So am I okay not having that $150 in order to experience the $25 cocktail that I don't need?
But if you've already
Maybe
had
yes.
two, that might be a real easy decision for the third.
Right, I know. It's just, it helps us think. Okay, so with that, thank you guys for your participation. I'm free for the next little bit, so I'm happy to stay and chat if there's any questions or we want to dig deeper. But for those of you that need to go, thank you for your time. Yeah.
Thank you.
You mentioned 7 lies. What was
I
that?
mentioned what?
You mentioned a book about 7 lies.
7 wives.
7 lies.
Wives,
7
yeah.
lies.
Not wives.
7
That's a
wives.
very
7
different
wives.
book.
That's Joe's next talk.
Joe, do you have a trust person that you can